I'm sorry to my family, to the Congress, to the Houston Astros, to the Orioles, to the Major League, and the other fan in baseball. And I really apologize because I don't want to be in this situation. I apologize to the whole United States because this country gave me opportunity to be who I am.
Sentencing in a San Diego courtroom today for an ex-All-Star pitcher, Esteban Loaiza. He'll spend 3 years in prison after admitting to trafficking cocaine out of his home in Imperial Beach.
Miguel Tejada arrested. Those 3 words shatter the fantasy that baseball success guarantees escape from the criminal world. When an MVSA stands before Congress and lies about steroids, when a Cy Young runner-up pilots trapped cars loaded with cartel cocaine, when a World Series champion orders workers burned alive with gasoline, we see something darker than fallen heroes. We see men who weaponize their fame, their wealth, and their platform to serve violent criminal enterprises. This is about players who didn't just get in trouble. They climbed the ranks of organized crime while wearing major league uniforms. The American sports narrative sells us a comforting myth. Sign that professional contract, cash those million-dollar checks, and you've escaped forever. But that story crumbles when you examine certain careers closely. For some players, that contract wasn't an exit strategy. It was seed capital, the mobility to cross borders, the credibility to lease stash houses without raising suspicion, the cover of legitimacy while operating in the shadows. Baseball didn't save these men from crime. It made them better criminals. We're not talking about athletes who made mistakes. We're talking about operational control, volume and scale, recognized status within established criminal hierarchies, 20 kilograms of cocaine, machete attacks and attempted burning of human beings, active gang affiliation documented by law enforcement. These are high-ranking operatives who used baseball as camouflage for something much darker. Miguel Tejada won the American League MVP in 2002. He earned tens of millions during his career, but money couldn't build walls thick enough to keep out the criminal gravity that surrounded his family. His brother ran a violent drug trafficking operation in Inwood, New York, not a small-time corner hustle, a highly structured ring that sold crack cocaine 24 hours a day. Federal investigators questioned Miguel because of his proximity to this enterprise. They wanted to know what he knew, what he saw, whether his wealth was adjacent to or directly funding criminal operations. Tejada never faced drug trafficking charges, but he did commit federal crimes. In 2005, he lied to House committee investigators about steroid use in baseball, perjury, making false statements to Congress. In 2009, he stood before a judge and pleaded guilty to withholding information. Then in 2013, baseball suspended him for 105 games after he tested positive for amphetamines. His story represents corruption rather than membership. The superstar pulled toward the gravitational field of organized crime, unable to escape the orbit entirely. But Tejada's proximity to the underworld looks innocent compared to what came next. Because Miguel Tejada questioned by federal agents is one thing. Esteban Loaiza actively managing a cartel stash house is something else entirely. If you're enjoying this deep dive into baseball's criminal underground, drop a comment below telling us which player's story shocked you most. And if you think we missed someone, let us know who we should investigate next. Esteban Loaiza started the 2003 All-Star game for the American League. 2-time All-Star, 14-year career, $43 million in earnings. He pitched for the White Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers. This wasn't some marginal player desperate for cash. This was an established veteran with generational wealth, and he chose to become a logistics officer for what federal authorities believe was the Sinaloa cartel. February 9th, 2018, the San Diego Sheriff's Border Crime Suppression Team had Loaiza under surveillance. Not random, not mistaken identity. They knew who he was and what he was doing. They watched him drive a silver Mercedes-Benz SUV through the affluent traffic of Southern California. Expensive vehicle, former athlete, nothing suspicious to the casual observer. But the agents knew better. They followed him to a townhouse he had leased in Imperial Beach, California, just north of the Mexican border. The property was textbook cartel infrastructure. No furniture, no personal belongings, nobody living there. It existed for one purpose only, to store and transfer narcotics moving north from Tijuana. Loaiza held the lease in his own name. His clean legal history, his financial credibility, his fame, all of it gave him the ability to rent properties without raising landlord suspicion. He was the perfect front. Inside the garage, agents watched Loaiza transfer product from the Mercedes to a minivan, not just any minivan, a trap car with a sophisticated factory-built concealment compartment in the rear cargo area, the kind of modification that costs serious money, the kind that requires connections to professional smuggling operations. And beneath those hidden panels, wrapped in baseball bags bearing Loaiza's own name, agents found 20 kilograms of cocaine, 44 pounds, street value approaching $500,000. This wasn't personal use. This wasn't even street-level dealing. 20 kilograms is wholesale quantity, the kind of volume that requires trusted relationships with suppliers, the kind that proves you're managing inventory, not just moving it. Loaiza wasn't some desperate mule taking orders. He controlled the stash house. He determined when product moved. He handled the logistics. Federal prosecutors described his role as active and involved participation in a complex criminal venture. The San Diego to Tijuana corridor belongs to the Sinaloa cartel. The sophisticated traps, the stash house methodology, the wholesale quantities. Every detail points to an organization that dominates that specific smuggling route, and Loaiza fit perfectly into their logistics chain. Assistant U.S. Attorney Larry Casper argued for significant prison time during sentencing. He pointed to Loaiza's privileged background, his opportunities, his wealth. This wasn't economic desperation. This was greed, pure calculated greed. A man who had everything choosing to break the law for profit, choosing to make money off other people's addiction, choosing to serve a cartel that leaves bodies piled in Mexican streets. Judge Sammartino sentenced Loaiza to 36 months in federal prison. DEA Special Agent Karen Flowers noted that Loaiza lived every boy's dream as an all-star, yet chose to be a drug dealer. Society chose to hold him accountable. After release, immigration deported Loaiza immediately. His felony made him inadmissible to the United States. Permanent exile. Loaiza represents corporate crime, but for brutal enforcement, examine October 2005 on a Venezuelan ranch. Ugueth Urbina, two-time All-Star closer who won a World Series. On-field intimidation became paramilitary violence. In 2004, FARC kidnapped Urbina's mother. Commander El Chiguero held her 5 months before military rescue. That kidnapping changed everything. Urbina learned the state couldn't protect his family. The victim became the victimizer. October 2005, pistol went missing from Urbina's family ranch. In gang culture, losing a weapon signals weakness. It demands severe punishment. Urbina didn't call the police. Why would he? They couldn't save his mother. Instead, he and his associates took matters into their own hands. They rounded up 7 workers on the property and accused them of the theft. What happened next mirrors the disciplinary tactics of organized crime groups throughout Latin America. Urbina and his men used machetes to slash the workers. Not fists, not threats, machetes. The weapon of choice for brutal intimidation and gang warfare. Then they poured gasoline on the bound men and attempted to burn them alive. Authorities arrested Urbina in November 2005. A Venezuelan court convicted him of frustrated homicide, which translates to attempted murder. The sentence was 14 years and 4 months in prison, but prison didn't end Urbina's involvement in criminal hierarchy. It may have elevated it. In Venezuelan prisons, the PRAN is the inmate boss who exercises absolute control over the facility. They run criminal enterprises from their cells, extortion, drug trafficking, kidnapping rings. They are the de facto government inside the walls. And according to investigative reporting by Connectus, Urbina may have transitioned from celebrity inmate to high-ranking figure within this system. The mega gangs like Tren de Aragua control Venezuelan prisons. They've also infiltrated the baseball academy system. They extort families, demanding percentages of signing bonuses. If you don't pay, you are dead, one officer told investigators. Urbina possessed everything necessary to navigate and potentially lead within this hierarchy. Wealth, a demonstrated capacity for extreme violence, connections to baseball. While definitive proof of his status as a pawn remains guarded by prison secrecy, his profile fits the archetype perfectly. His trajectory reveals the commodification of violence. In a failing state, wealth allowed him to act as a feudal lord. The machete attack, the attempted burning, these weren't momentary lapses of judgment. They were calculated enforcement of his authority, indistinguishable from the gang leaders who dominate the region through terror. But Venezuelan paramilitary violence and Mexican cartel logistics represent international criminal enterprise. What about American street gangs? What happens when those organizations retain their grip on members even after they sign major league contracts? For that answer, you examine Elijah Dukes, highly touted prospect for Tampa Bay, 5-tool talent, but teammates described him as a ticking time bomb because Dukes never left the 54 boys. The Tampa Street Gang wasn't his past, It was his identity. The 54 boys operate in Tampa, specializing in drug distribution and violence. Police reports confirm Dukes maintained active membership throughout his career. He flashed gang signs on Facebook, used the alias Badass online. This was performance of gang identity, refusal to submit to authority outside the gang. His constant clashes with coaches and law weren't just anger, they demonstrated gang loyalty, proving he hadn't gone soft. To understand why the gang held such power over him, you have to examine his childhood. September 1995, Dukes' father, Elijah Sr., shot and killed a man named Kevin Reese outside a Tampa bar. The motive was a dispute over fake crack cocaine that Reese had allegedly sold to Dukes' mother, Phyllis. She admitted to dealing crack to support the family, called it her biggest mistake. But the damage was permanent. 12-year-old Elijah Jr. sat in the courtroom and watched his father receive 20 years for second-degree murder. His sister Katrina remembered him trying to touch his dad as guards led him away in shackles. That traumatic event, the loss of his father to the prison system and his mother's involvement in the crack trade, created a direct pipeline to the 54 boys. The gang provided structure, protection, a warped form of masculinity to replace what the state had stripped away. Dukes extended his gang tactics into domestic life. His estranged wife, Nisha Gilbert Dukes, accused him of threatening to kill her and their children. In one chilling message, he allegedly sent a photo of a handgun to her phone. This behavior reflects the coercive control dynamics often seen in gang affiliates, where violence is used to maintain dominance in personal relationships, just as it is on the street corner. Since leaving baseball, Dukes has been caught in a revolving door of the criminal justice system. Arrests for assault, drug possession, tampering with evidence. In one incident, he attempted to eat marijuana during an arrest to destroy evidence, a desperate street-level tactic. He's faced charges for failure to appear in court, leading to warrants and fugitive status. The revolving door validates what everyone feared. He never left the 54 boys' life. No amount of MLB salary could sever that bond because the gang provided the emotional validation that professional sports, which viewed him as a commodity, never did. These three men represent different arms of organized crime infiltrating baseball. Loaiza, the cartel logistician. Urbina, the paramilitary warlord. Dukes, the street soldier. Each story reflects a different failure. Loaiza's case shows how retirement creates a void that criminal enterprise fills, how the adrenaline of moving millions in product replicates the high of performing before crowds. Urbina's trajectory demonstrates what happens when wealth meets lawlessness, when the state can't protect you, so you become the aggressor. Dukes proves that money doesn't cure trauma, that gangs become surrogate families, that bonds forged in childhood can't be broken by professional success. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays knew about Dukes' family history. They knew he was a ticking time bomb, but they drafted him anyway because his 5-tool talent was too tempting. The organization prioritized potential wins over community safety and player stability. Talent excused pathology until pathology became liability. That's the cynical calculation where statistics matter more than character. These cases aren't widespread epidemics, but where they exist, they're profound. Loaiza, Urbina, and Dukes didn't stumble into crime. They climbed the ladders of criminal organizations. They used the attributes that made them successful athletes: discipline, ruthlessness, high risk tolerance, and applied those skills in the darkest corners of society. The myth of the role model shatters when you examine these lives closely. The celebrated athlete and condemned criminal are separated by a thin membrane. Baseball didn't save these men. In some cases, it gave them resources to dominate their environments more effectively. The contract that was supposed to be an exit became a promotion, from a corner boy to cartel logistics, from victim of violence to paramilitary enforcer, from gang affiliate to gang representative in the major leagues. The league failed these players and the communities they endangered. The vetting process prioritized talent over red flags. Support systems left retired players adrift. Communities that celebrated their success were betrayed when those heroes chose to serve cartels, gangs, and violence. Baseball deserves better than players who facilitate cocaine trafficking, order workers burned alive, or flash gang signs in uniform. These stories remind us that integrity matters, that wealth without character is well-funded corruption, that the game can be weaponized by men who see it as cover for criminal work. We've uncovered the dark truth about MLB players who became high-ranking gang members and cartel operatives serving criminal organizations. These aren't just cautionary tales. They're evidence that organized crime actively infiltrates professional sports in devastating ways. If this investigation opened your eyes to baseball's criminal underground and its deep roots, leave a comment sharing your reaction. And if you want us to dig deeper into other leagues or other players, let us know what you want exposed next. The truth is darker than the myth, but it's the truth we need to face.